Okay, today we're going to slowly work our way to adding and subtracting fractions with whether they have like denominators or unlike denominators. Your learning target, you can add and subtract fractions. However, today's what's different than 6th grade, you have to apply integer rules. So you're going to be having a positive and negative fractions that you're going to add. One of the learning targets that you have to know today is how to convert between mixed numbers and improper fractions. And we've learned this in years past, so I just want to spend this minute to review this. If this is an improper fraction because my denominator is smaller than my numerator. So to convert that to a mixed number, I say how many times does 3 go into 11? How many? Nice and loud. How many times? 3. 3 goes into 11 3 times. What do I have left over? 2 is left over, and 3 stays as my denominator. So what it looks like is how many whole times, that's on the outside, and then you have a fraction next to it, and you have remaining, and then the original denominator. So 3 goes into 11 3 whole times, 2 would remain, and 3 as the denominator. That's converting from an improper fraction to a mixed number. Now to convert from a mixed number to an improper fraction. Maybe you learned the Texas technique. I like that technique. That's where you go the bottom times the number, add the top. The Texas technique. So now watch what I'm going to do with the negative. I'm not going to go 3 times negative 1. I'm going to go 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is what? 3 times 1 is 3 plus 2 is 5 all over 3, and then you just bring that negative to the side. So don't times it by negative 1, because it's going to make a whole different fraction if you did. Because 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1 over 3. It is not the same thing. So you leave the negative to the side. All right, again, use your Texas technique. So 9 times 3 is 27. 27 plus 4 is 28, 29, 30, 31 over the denominator of 9. Notice your denominator always stays the same. The denominator doesn't change unless you have to simplify in the end, and then the denominator will change. Okay, now here again, I got a negative. You just leave it on the outside. You do the normal converting and put the negative to the side. So how many times does 4 go into 22? 5. 5 whole times. What remains? 2 remains. 4 as the denominator, and now I change it. I change it because 2/4 can be simplified. That can be 1/2. So the final answer is negative 5 and 1/2. So that's learning target number 1 today. You're going to have to know how to convert between an improper fraction and a mixed number. All right, learning target number 2 is the actual addition of fractions with like denominators. Okay? Notice that we have with like denominators. It is completely different when you have to find a common denominator. All you need to do is add the numerators. Numerators. So when you add fractions, all you do is add the numerators. That's contingent that you have common denominators. But we have to be super careful because now you're going to have positive and negative. So you need to know when do you add them, when do you subtract them. So notice I put a little chart, a little integer review chart. If they're the same sign, you add. Remember? Same sign, add. If they're different, what do? Subtract. So I'm going to say, are they the same or different? If it's minus, you need to plus a negative or plus plus. So those are the three things you're checking. Do I add, subtract, or do I change it to a plus plus or plus a negative? And we have 6 practice problems with this. Again, it's nice because all of these will have common denominators, so we can just really focus on the integer rules for the numerators. Okay, so 2/3 minus 4/3. Now look, it's minus. Minus means that I need to plus a negative. So I'm going to go plus a negative. And then I have 2 plus a negative 4 all over 3. See, I'm just adding the tops. Now, do I add those or subtract those? I subtract because they are different, notice. Different means I'm going to subtract them. So 4 minus 2 is 2. I have more negatives, so it's a negative 2 all over 3. So it's negative 2/3. Gordon?
Would it still be equal if you were to put the negative sign on the side or the bottom line?
Yep, remember, and that's from last unit, rational number unit. It's total, it doesn't matter if it's negative 2 over 3, a negative 2/3, or 2 over negative 3. It's all the same thing, as long as there's only one. Great question. I have a minus sign. That means I'm going to plus a negative. Ooh, see, and don't forget to plus that negative because now if you look, they're the same, so we're going to end up adding them. So it's negative 4 plus a negative 2 over 9. Now do I add or subtract these? Add. 4 plus 2 is 6. Keep it negative, so negative 6 over 9. And then what do I need to do? Simplify. So divide them both by 3. And I get negative 2/3 as my final answer. All right, next one. 3/5 minus a negative 4/5. So I see the minus sign, so my eyes look right here. What do I need to do? Am I plussing a negative or plus-plussing? I'm plus-plus, because they're right next to each other. Those two negatives are right next to each other. So this really turns to 3/5 plus 4/5, which is what? 7 over 5. 3 plus 4 is 7 over 5. Now we convert. And that's that practice from the beginning. 5 goes into 7 one whole time. 2 remains. Keep the denominator of 5. Okay? Alrighty. Last 3 practice problems. So negative 5/7 plus a negative 5/7. Now, notice that there's already plus a negative, so I don't have to change this. So this is really negative 5 plus negative 5 all over 7. Do I add or subtract them? Add, because they're the same, right? They're both negative, so I add them. Negative 10 over 7. And now I have to apply the skill from that we reviewed in the beginning. Notice what I'm going to do with the negative. You just kind of leave it alone until the end. 7 goes into 10 one time, so I'm going to say negative 1. 3 remains, 7 as the denominator. Okay? All right, the next one, I have plus a negative already, so I don't have to change anything. And I'm just going to say 10 plus a negative 13 all over 13. Again, I stop and I say, do I add or subtract these? I subtract. I subtract because they're different. You use your integer rules for that. So 13 minus 10 is 3, and I have more negatives, so it's negative 3 over 13. Okay? Last one. And this one's kind of definitely the trickier one. Negative 7 minus a negative 5. I'm going to turn this to plus plus, and please rewrite because this is where the mistake happens. You actually don't add these together. And people, when they don't rewrite it, they tend to add them. This is negative 7a plus 5a, which is negative 7 plus 5 over 8. And they're different, so I subtract them. 7 minus 5 is 2. I have more negatives, so negative 2 over 8. And then simplify. 1/4. So negative 1 over 4 is your final answer. So again, please, when you see something like this one, and it turns to plus plus and you have a negative in front, rewrite it. Rewrite it. It will help your brain keep it straight. And then you see that they're actually different because I have a negative 7 and a positive 5. So they're actually different, which means subtract and then simplify in the end. And that's your learning target.